Do I use my sport jacket to put it on? Can I pee on it? What do I do? I always like looking into history because there's thousands of years of adventures, right? And from occasionally getting invited to Concours d'Elegances in the past, I really grew a love for pre-war cars. Rolls Royces, Duesenbergs, Fagonian flashy bodied Delahaye's, things like this. They're just absolutely exquisite works of art from another time, another lifestyle, another culture. And I'd always aspired to have something like this, so a beautiful car. I had a Countach at the time and I'd sold it. Pre-war cars that are beautiful don't readily come on the market often. And I'm not going to mess around with an auction because I like to get a deal, of course. And a particular car that I loved came up. It was an Auburn Boattail Speedster from 1931. It was just really gorgeous, big, tall, chrome, opulent. And by today's standards, it's not fast. But in 1931, that was the Bugatti Veyron. When you would buy one from the factory, it would have a plate on it that said, this car was tested to 106 miles per hour. Like breakneck, insane speeds for 1931, of course. And which in the car is really saying something. A car like that, a Duesenberg, an Auburn, the Bugatti of that time period, was what the best exotic cars are today. It's a lifestyle. They're expensive, they're fast, they're exciting, they're art. And for me, it was so many things. And I just had a great time with it. So this car, I made the deal, it was down in Florida. And I thought to myself, the heck with it. I'm just going to fly down there, pick this thing up, and I'm going to have a kind of weird, eccentric, pre-war party to myself. And I'm going to do all kinds of old things. I'm going to go ride steam locomotives and go sailing and go play polo in Aiken, South Carolina and pretend it's 1931. And I think I just bought it and went on the test drive. And I was going to go visit a friend of mine who used to own the Ferrari dealerships down in Florida, doing some vintage racing, really nice gentleman. I get part of the way to his house and the car dies, the Auburn dies. It's like vapor locking, okay? First of all, no one has parts for cars from 1931, and I'm just going to go for it. I brought some tools, and it was the mechanical fuel pump. It was vapor locking. It's modern gas is different from gas from the better part of 100 years ago. When it gets hot, it evaporates. So I think to myself, okay, I'll get an electric fuel pump, some cheap one in an AutoZone or whatnot, and that'll solve the problem, maybe. Next problem, the car is a 6-volt system, not 12-volt like every cars are today, and everything in it is old. So I'm racking my brains that night. How am I going to fix this thing? I actually want to drive it to Ohio. It's like 1,600 miles. And it's 6-volt, not 12-volt, and AutoZone has crappy thing. It's just little fuel pumps. But fortunately, it needs like a half a PSI of pressure. It doesn't need hardly anything to make this thing go. And I just kind of did some basic calculations in my head and figured, okay, if it's a 6-volt system running a 12-volt fuel pump, as long as it runs and doesn't get anything in it, it'll make less pressure. But it's not that much horsepower. And if I put a regulator in, long story short, I fixed it. It ran perfectly. I actually got there. But it was kind of fun to do MacGyver ingenuity on the road. One of the highlights, though, was I got to Virginia. And I went to this gorgeous transportation museum, and in it were 2 steam locomotives that I'm absolutely in love with. They're streamlined. They literally have been deemed national treasures by the White House. Like, it's the last of its kind, fastest steam locomotive in history. It'd do like 110 miles an hour, gorgeous thing, and it's beautiful. And the people at the museum really liked what I was doing. They let me park my car in their displays overnight. So the next morning, I go to get in my car, and I think I'm cool. I got like a fedora hat on. Yeah, I look like a dork, but I'm pretending it's 1931. Now keep in mind, I'm at a museum. There are people there with their families and stuff just to see these things. There's like old guys looking at stuff they remember from when they're kids and whatnot. I'm getting into what's effectively an exhibit to start it up and drive away, and they're like, what is happening? So I start this thing up like this. And I start it up and I'm kind of getting some things. And this old guy looks at me and goes, "You're on fire!" I go, "What?" "Oh, turn it off." It's an updraft carburetor. And I was choking it heavily and didn't want to start. So this fuel that's barely getting in there is pooling in the bottom of this carburetor and airbox, and it lit. And it's not that bad, but I'm just like losing it because I'm in between national treasures at a museum and my prized Auburn is now on fire. I'm looking at this going like, do I use my sport jacket to put it on? Can I pee on it? What do I do? I don't even remember how I got it on. I tamped it out. I did this. Somebody brings a fire extinguisher, but I already got it out. It really wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a big deal, but the old guy did it. But since I'm in a museum with national treasures, they sounded like DEFCON 1, fire marshals, and everybody comes and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. But everybody was cool, everything was fine, and they were nice to me. And one of the guys there that worked on the locomotives, he worked with me, I'm like, let's get some new fuel lines and stuff. Let's make this right before I get out of here. That was the year that the new Great Gatsby movie by Baz Luhrmann, who directed Moulin Rouge, came out. It was Leonardo DiCaprio was Jay Gatsby, and it was a big deal at that time. And my Auburn, while technically not period correct to the 20s when The Great Gatsby was set, was actually from a prettier demographic of cars a few years later that the movie people used. And in fact, the antagonist, Buchanan, the wealthy old money guy that Gatsby and him come to blows with, drove the exact same Auburn Boattail Speedster in the movie that I did, except his was blue, mine was orange. And Gatsby, of course, had a Duesenberg dual cowl Phaeton. I was single at the time. I'm going to play this up all summer long. This is going to be great. We're going to go to every Gatsby party. This is going to be a riot. And the thing that was cool about it was, I had a lot of friends that had Lamborghinis at the time, Ferraris, and we would have fun, and it would be fashionable and exciting, and we would go out. But what was so amazing from a car like that, from that time period, to this day, that time period of opulenceness that an old relative of mine once said, "That was when money was money, honey," would say, still trumps like all the new Lamborghinis and stuff. It's kind of funny because with my Viper, I kind of like messing with people a little bit. And then when I had the Auburn, I sort of like messing with them too because I could outshow your new Lamborghini. And I know you secretly hate that because I'm driving a car from 1931, but nobody, you know what I mean? So it was a lot of fun. And then when you go to parties, you dress in periods. So I'd go white linen suit, orange cuffs, everything like this. So it was totally Gatsby'd out. I had a straw Panama hat that was perfect. And I remember going to this particular Gatsby party. It was a beautiful house. It was a fundraiser for some historic abbey, whatever. Everybody's there, and you just get to be like the rock star of this party. Women love to dress up. Young women love to dress up. And the thing that was cool about these Gatsby parties, it would be dancing and women in great clothing, and it would be insanely fun. You wouldn't think it. You'd think it'd be old, but it ended up being this amazing celebration of life. And I remember going from the initial part of the party to the main party, and there was this guy that was a politician, pretty prominent politician, wearing this seersucker suit, and we're driving this Auburn through downtown Columbus. I had this Bose radio. I'd play like period music, and we're like singing along to this. And I'm like, this car has this unworldly presence from like another planet. And so we go to the party, and we're there, and there's dancing going on, and there's a very attractive professional ballroom dancer there that I met. I just struck up a conversation. I said, I used to do a little ballroom dancing myself. And she's like, "Oh, we must dance." So I'm like waltzing with this and having a great time at the party. And we go to leave, and there's going to be an after party at the craft cocktail place in the German Village, which is time period. So naturally, we're going to take the car. And I'm like, how many women can I get in an Auburn Boattail Speedster tonight? Well, it's a small car, so the answer was only 2, even though it's a 2-passenger car. And I remember there's this attractive blonde woman from Australia that was sitting right next to me, dressed like a flapper in the time period. It was great fun. And there's this very attractive woman from Taiwan who was sitting with me right here. So we looked, we just rolled out of the movie Great Gatsby. If you're going to party, do it like that. It was like that summer the universe said, "Casey, you're going to be Jay Gatsby." And I said, "Okay, all I have to do is not get shot." So we're like, let's not just go to the after party, let's drive around downtown. It was also gallery hop night when everybody's out in the arts district and everything like this, and we're driving. The Taiwanese girl sitting here, she's got a cigar of all things. And you know how people in a big city, there's like guys selling flowers and things or cigar or whatever. I'm like, sure, I'll take him. Give me the bouquet here. We're like throwing this Make It Rain flowers and driving all around, having the time of our lives. I'll get to the party, had a great time. I actually never did take the car over to 100 miles an hour because I'm like, these tires are old. I'm not going to push my luck. I love exotic cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis for the driving, for having fun. And sometimes they're fun to party with. You meet cool people and you have a lot of fun like that too. But if you really want to see and be seen and have fun driving a car, something that's old and party, you need to get a big opulent car from the early 30s because it is the ultimate. Some people would like to get, Bugatti Veyron, and I can't even think what the newest one is, like a Devo or something like that. But I want to get a Duesenberg dual cowl Phaeton. And here's why. I did some thinking about it. First of all, it's bigger and more grand than my Auburn was, just over the top. But a dual cowl Phaeton effectively has 2 compartments for people to sit in. And since there's a division from the driving area to the rear with a windshield, I realized that even though it's a car from the 30s and grand, it would technically meet the requirements of a limousine. So if you hire a professional chauffeur, you can drink in the back. Yes! Which, of course, you're not driving, and you want to celebrate life and have fun, go to the theater and then to the party afterward. And I'm thinking, this is what's in my mind. I'm going to get a Duesenberg dual cowl Phaeton, and we're going to sit in the back and pick up our friends, and we're going to dress fancy. We're going to have a cane or something like this, and we're going to open champagne with a rapier and just have the time of our lives going to the theater. And to make it even more fun, in my mental envision of this, I'm going to hire a race car driver that I don't like to be the chauffeur, to make him drive slowly, and we just mess with him like, don't spill our champagne. And then people come by and was, isn't that the guy that won the Indy 500 last year? I'm like, I don't know, but he's a terrible driver. I spilled half a bottle. At the time of my life, I also, believe it or not, played polo a bit. And I love animals, I love horses, it's pretty athletic, and I just thought it was the greatest sport in the world. It's an ancient war sport, and I still had my Auburn. And a friend of mine who had a Ferrari service shop, we would sponsor an event. And every single proceed we gave to Nationwide Children's Hospital. So it was a nice thing too. But with the Auburn, it was the car from that time period. It was another way to live the Gatsby life. I mean, polo, come on. And so what we did was we buy loads of flowers to give all the women who come to match, just a nice little treat. And in the morning, I remember it was so cool. It's like, how is this still actually happening? I play polo, I'm going to a polo match, and I have this literally giant bouquet of flowers filling the Auburn. It was this beautiful day. So I remember this is the best flower wagon ever. And of course, I played in the polo match, and the beautiful thing about horses, it's not motor vehicles, and nobody cares if you have a glass of champagne. So after a period, I get off the horse and be like, champagne! And as one last story that's not the Auburn, a buddy of mine has a DeLorean. And DeLoreans, as you know, have gull-wing doors, so the whole side opens up. And after the polo match was over and most people went home and everything like that, the field was this way. And I got the idea, I'm like, wait a minute. If I have my buddy drive the DeLorean with the doors open, I can lean out the car and pretend he's a horse with a small mallet and hit balls. So we played DeLorean polo, and it was great fun. And I collected my buddy like a horse and hit balls. But the Auburn Boattail Speedster from 1931 actually can still trump any modern exotic car. So Grandpa still got it, and I had one heck of a good Gatsby summer.
I'd like to thank the guys at Avalon King for supporting the channel this month. If you want to try it out yourself, there's a link in the description below.